Hi, this is a hermit, and in my last homeschool story time, I talked about how first grade for my son was basically a repeat of kindergarten from the previous year because we had changed states, and it just so happened that New York was doing um, in first grade what New Orleans was doing in kindergarten, and there just really wasn't a whole lot I could do about that. The school did, you know, give him some enrichment, pulled him to second grade for, some things eventually because I acted crazy. And so that, was a remedy. And they pacified me talking about, gifted in the next year. But, as life was going at that point, we were moving from state to state at a pretty good clip. Um, that was the year we were in New York, basically because I had gotten sick in New Orleans. And my husband was still in New Orleans working, and so he got a job in Atlanta. So he got the job in Atlanta early spring, and I think we finished up end of May. We told the school, he's getting A+++. Give him a report card, and daughter finished her school. It was a private school, so they finished earlier. And so we packed up the kids and we went to New York. Now, meanwhile, my daughter was having a magnificent year in the Seventh day Adventist school. It was just, we're not Seventh day Adventists, but, they're very giving people, it seems. And they just treated her so well for pre-K. I don't remember her ever walking when she was in that school. She was very tiny. She'd walk in the front door and a student or a teacher or someone would pick her up, carry her. They babied her, they fed her, she got an art award for the whole school at the end of the year. They just let her be her and they let her develop, and, they introduced her to arts, and she worked on her spelling and she worked on her math, and we finished that pre-K. And when we moved to Atlanta, she was ready for kindergarten. She went into kindergarten, and my son went to second grade. Yes. I did what I did every year. I sat down with the teachers and I said, this is how my child operates. I thought that was what parents are supposed to do. So I said, this is how my child operates. She's very affectionate. She likes to be noticed. He's very quiet. He doesn't want to be noticed. They're both smart. They're both bright. Let me know if you hit any kinks. Right. And then it just started with her so bad. And I think I spoke about this in either Storytime number 1 or my I Am Back video about her experiences there. But, oh man, it was just constantly, she wiggles too much. She doesn't keep her shoes on. This, that. She stole someone's lunch repeatedly. This child was this big around. I had to buy her, I couldn't buy her pants because for the pants to fit her body, they weren't near long enough for her body. So I had to buy her skirts 2 sizes shorter than the tops that went with the skirts. She wasn't eating her lunch, let alone anyone else's. And it was just exhausting, y'all. And was that the year? Finally, halfway through kindergarten, 2 kids get into a fight. The one who was stealing lunches and the one whose lunch was being stolen. Had nothing to do with my child. And for some reason, my child was the first-hand witness to this fight. And the teacher tells me the story at the school. And the teacher's just laughing, and I'm looking at her like. So basically, there was a fight, and my child was a first-hand witness. And so she asked my child what happened. My child told her what happened. She got the story from both children. She came back to my child. She asked my child what happened again, and my child looked at her and said, "Have I lied to you yet?" Teacher goes, "Well, no, not that I know of." And she goes, "Then why are you asking me again?" And this is just the child we're dealing with. Just very matter of fact, very black and white, very blunt, and very New York. I mean, that's where I'm from. That kind of sharp temperament is kind of what came out in her, and bless their hearts. In the South, they didn't know what to do with that. Um, so that was going on there, and as I had said before, my son was being smacked around. So the next year, something similar happened. It was just crazy where they couldn't even get acclimated to the school year until halfway through, and my brain is ticking, and I'm going, this can only get bad, and it seemed like my son was shrinking away, and my daughter was having physiological problems and night terrors, and I just had to put a stop to it. And I belonged to a church at the time where there was a woman who was homeschooling a tribe. She had her kids, she had adopted some kids, she was homeschooling a tribe, and she became my mentor. And after I made the decision to homeschool, and she was extremely helpful. We went to homeschool conventions. I went to a couple different homeschool meetings. I mean, her help was just invaluable. And I glommed onto her, and I loved her, and all was good with the world for a year. And then she kind of rejected me. And there's a lot that went to that. I don't listen. If I'm going to homeschool, if I'm going to step out of public school and step away from the rules, then why am I going to follow someone else's rules to homeschool? Homeschool's about freedom to me. So there's that too. Something personal had happened in her family that was bad. And my husband and I supported them emotionally, financially. But when it all blew over, we were a reminder of the incident. They left the church because that was a reminder of the incident. And they dropped their friends. I mean, she came back a couple of years later, but I was like, talk to the hand. You rejected me, I can't. But thank God for that first year of close homeschool mentoring. It was wonderful. It was useful. Some of it wasn't all great because some of the things that the advice I took wasn't best for my children. So I'm going to go to say, with that said, I'm going to go to say homeschooling is not about getting a formula and following rules. Homeschooling is about taking what you can glom from each area, making your own little creation, and giving it out to your children. And that realization took me through the rest of the years of homeschooling. But yeah, we were well on our way. We were homeschooling. That first year was something that did happen. I do owe you a little bit of drama. Something that did happen was, after I told the teachers in January, December, that I was going to homeschool my daughter, all of a sudden I started being harassed by the principal, by the assistant principal who agreed with me homeschooling, by the teacher, by special ed department of the school, that my daughter was attention deficit and needed to get tested and needed speech therapy, and she had quite the wisp. Her lips were big for her face, and talking was really something else. But she was 5 and everything hadn't finished growing yet, so it didn't faze me any. So they kept, they kept pushing meetings and they kept pushing testing, and I kept pushing no. Um, and thanks to my advisor, she was like, just don't let them label your kid. Don't let your kid walk through the life with a label unless you take them to an outside specialist and, they determine your child is whatever, and then you can take the steps to work through the problem instead of just saying, well, you can't because you have this label. So I refused to do the label. So then they started pushing because they knew I wasn't going to do it. So they started pushing speech therapy. And I'm like, I know she has a bit of the wah-wahs, we call them, because it wasn't really a lisp, it was more of a lisp. So she had the bit of a wah-wahs. And I was like, no. And then finally I was like, okay, so we'll have a meeting and we'll talk. And would you know, I got there for the meeting and they informed me that they had the meeting the hour before because that was when they had the time, and they gave me the results of the meeting and they gave me something to sign, and I wrote no on it and handed it back to them. So they were pretty perturbed. They didn't know what to have to do with themselves. So then they were like, well, okay, let's do a test then. Let's do a test for speech therapy, and you can sit on the test. I'm like, damn straight, excuse my language, I'm going to sit on this test. So I'm sitting in on the test, and I'm sitting there, and they're testing my child, and they test her for speech. I'm like, all right, it's going okay. And then they start doing behavioral stuff and asking questions that had nothing to do with speech. And I just froze. And I was really mad, but I don't remember saying a whole lot. The test was over. I cursed the lady out. That's why I didn't say anything. I didn't want to act out in front of my child. When I sent my daughter to her class, I cursed the lady out. So I told her that test she gave was not what we were there for, and how dare she make my child feel some kind of way about themselves by asking them questions, about how they feel about this and how they feel about that, and making her question her brain and stuff like that. I cursed out the principal, I cursed out the assistant principal, and I cursed out the teacher. But they were determined to retain her for services. Even after we stopped homeschooling, they wanted her to come back for services, for ADHD services and speech services, because, keep the money in the school. Keep the money in the school. Look, you do not need the school services after you have removed from the school. It is better for your child for you to pay for the services privately. Just going to say that. So thanks to my mentor, I went back and I told my mentor, and she was like, just conscientiously disagree on it, deny all services, give it back. And that's what I did. I was like, boop, nope, goodbye. And so we ended that first grade school year, and because we had gone into the first grade when the stuff really hit the fan. So we ended the first grade school year and the third grade school year with the teachers knowing that we weren't coming back. And at this point, I was being questioned for my child on how I was going to homeschool a child with special needs, and I was being questioned on the other child on how I was going to homeschool a child with giftedness. Remember, this child wasn't gifted. They said this child wasn't gifted, and all of a sudden, now he's gifted. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be all right. And I was. So when I return, we'll talk about our first year of homeschooling. Until next time. Oh, ask questions. I'll stop what I'm doing. I'll answer them. And then we'll go on. Take care.